Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Multiplayer Gaming Podcast bonus round. We are coming to you guys here midweek, and today we're going to be talking about the best year in video games. So I am your host, Paul, and each week we like to break down a multiplayer game, and here midweek we're doing something a little bit different, and I am joined this week by my co-host, Josh. What's going on, man?
Hey, dude, I'm super excited about this episode.
I am too.
We actually had to do a little bit of research because, it's hard to find a year that you can say this was the pinnacle year for video gaming. And so it was cool to go back and look, man. And then it just got me all amped up.
Yeah, absolutely. And to give you credit, Josh, this was your idea. We kick around ideas during the week, try to figure out what we want to do. And since Todd went out on paternity leave, you've definitely been picking up the slack. I think this is the third bonus round where we just took your idea. So, you wanted to do that Overwatch draft, which was fun. We knocked out some Would You Rathers last week. And today we just decided, let's go back, take a look at, video games historically and which year do each of us think is the best year in video games. So I think people tend to do this a lot with movies or music. Like a lot of times you'll hear kicked around that, 1999 was one of the best years for movies. You had The Matrix, Fight Club, American Beauty, Magnolia, Office Space, The Mummy, Sixth Sense, all those came out in one year. And I don't know that I've really heard anyone really talk about what year they liked the most for video games. So I think it's a great idea. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you went into determining which year you thought was best?
Man, it was kind of daunting at first. Like if you start looking at what games were released what year, then you get like 900-page lists of games. Like it amazes me how many games are actually released in a year. And so trying to filter through that was nuts. And then so I kind of just took a further back approach and I went, okay, like let me look at like the top 10 or maybe 20 games that were popular for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then that really kind of helped me kind of hone in and like, oh man, it was kind of eye-opening really, because I didn't realize like some of these games released the same year. And then just when I was like, oh yeah, that's the best year ever. Then I'd hop to a different year and then I'd be like, what? Like these games all came out that year? Like I had no idea, And so it was interesting, man.
Yeah, I definitely had to take a little bit of a scientific method to this, just being the inner nerd that I am. I'm the kind of kid who saved up money and bought a really nice graphing calculator in high school. I thought about being a math major in college.
I can confirm that makes you a nerd, so yes.
Oh, absolutely. I was in marching band, all the AP classes. Oh, yeah, for sure. So I actually opened up Excel and I just went back and I started in 1989, which was when I was 5 years old. I don't really remember any gaming prior to that. We did not own any gaming systems, but I did have my best friend who owned an NES in 1989. So I went back, I took a look at all the games, all the notable games released every year from 1989 to 2019. And so I would jot down the game, what system it was on, and I gave it a score of a 1, a 2, or a 3. 1 means it is a very good game, a 2 is that it's great, and a 3 means that I think it's like a masterpiece. And so then after I did this I can tell you, I got my spreadsheet up, I ended up going through 234 games, and then I assigned a score. So if the game was a masterpiece, it was worth 3 points. If it was great, it was worth 2 points. And if it was very good, it was worth 1 point. I added up all the scores, compared every year, and there was a clear winner, but there was a second year that was pretty close behind. So hopefully you didn't tune out or fall asleep talking about a little bit of math there. But I just couldn't help it. I had to go about this, not just glancing at a couple games. I went all out with the spreadsheets.
I have realized that I now feel drastically underprepared. So thank you for that. I thought I really went above and beyond. And actually, I found 6 years that stood out to me. And I physically typed out like the 8 or 9 games that released in each of those years that really impressed me and why I thought these 6 years belonged, and then narrowed it down from there. So I was really kind of proud of myself for doing that much work to try to like narrow this down. And now you've just crushed all that and made me realize that I'm really just a slacker.
Well, it'll just help, because when you point out a year, it might even be better than you realized. I've done a little more legwork. I've got my list. I'm not even joking. I even made a couple of graphs. I put the overall score each year on a scatter chart, and it's great. So I've got all the numbers, all the data. Don't worry, Josh, that you don't necessarily have all of it. I'll fill in the gaps.
Okay, that's good.
All right. So how about? Do you want to go first?
Okay, so I gotta touch on something real quick. I am
sure
seriously torn between these 2 years.
So you still haven't made a decision? Is this going to be a game time?
I have legit not made a decision. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to mention both years. I will force myself into a decision live on the air, and then we'll just kind of see what happens from there. Does that sound good?
Sure. So which 2 years are we looking at here?
Okay. I'm going to throw these years out. 1997.
Okay.
I'll mention why. So 1997 was the year after I graduated high school. Okay. Now we all joke that I'm the oldest of the bunch. Okay. So for those that feel like doing math out there, do your math. You can figure out how old I am. But 1997, I had just graduated high school. I had a free ride to college. I was super pumped. And then all of a sudden, I'm a freshman in college. All of these amazing games come out. And you would think I don't have a whole lot of time to play like games in college and stuff, but no, I had time. It was, one of my best group of friends in my life. We met up all the time. We played a ton of these games together. It was that time in my life that just resonated with me and stood out, as like not only a good time in my life, but like then these games were in there too. And I have so many fond memories of these games. Okay. So let me read you some of these games that came out in 1997.
Sure. Let's hear them.
All right. Number 1, GoldenEye.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, that's a no-brainer. We talk about how epic GoldenEye is, but that is the year that GoldenEye released.
Golden Age of the 64.
Final Fantasy VII. Heralded as one of the greatest games ever made. I mean, that game is epic. So that game came out. Curse of Monkey Island. How good are the Monkey Island games? I mean, super great memories of those. Castlevania, Symphony of the Night.
Yep.
I mean, heralded as, again, one of the best games for 2D side-scrollers.
The best 2D game ever, in my opinion.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Star Fox 64.
Awesome multiplayer.
Yep. Age of Empires. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the Age of Empires, but we know that Todd is, right?
Yep.
Age of Empires 2, he still plays almost
daily.
2 to 3 times a week, right?
Yeah.
Ultima Online. Now, a lot of people may not remember Ultima Online. I played the Ultima games, but Ultima Online was the precursor to the MMO. Legitimately, Ultima Online is what led into the MMO genre. So, I mean, that right there. Quake 2.
Great shooter.
Quake 2 was like the heart of like multiplayer shooters. Like that was like when they were just gaining ground and becoming awesome. And you were rocket launchering people. Turok.
Mm-hmm.
Turok Dinosaur Hunter. That game, dude, I remember playing that game. That game was amazing, man. You actually got to like fight dinosaurs. Like that was great. The original Fallout.
Which I never played, but I saw that on the list.
Right. I mean, Fallout, the series was born in 1997. This one is near and dear to my heart. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter.
Yep.
I played the heck out of that game. I saved up my money and bought a joystick. My parents thought I was stupid because they were like, why do you need a joystick? It's 1997. And I was like, I got to have a joystick to be able to play X-Wing versus TIE Fighter the right way.
Was it one of the super deluxe ones that had like 20 buttons on the joystick, or was it just like 2?
It had the missile lock. No, I didn't have 20 buttons, but the main thing it had the missile lock with the little plastic cover.
Uh-huh.
So that when I wanted to launch missiles, I had to pop it up with my thumb and then hit the button to launch missiles. So that was like my main requirement there.
Very nice. And that was the best of all the X-Wing games. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter was the best.
Yes. Gran Turismo.
Okay.
Now, I'm not a huge racing game fan, but I played a ton of Gran Turismo. Grand Theft Auto.
Number 1?
Number 1, the original Grand Theft Auto. Now, I get maybe the originals aren't as great as some of the newer ones, but again, a series was born. Tomb Raider 2 and Tekken 3. And the list goes on and on. You might be able to find more, but man.
I will throw out one that I can't believe you didn't mention. Diablo 1, 1997.
That was Diablo?
Diablo 1.
Like, how did I miss Diablo, man?
Yeah.
Okay.
NFL Blitz, also 1997. Probably the
see,
best football game.
Yes, that is
It's
one
a
of
good
the best
year.
football games. Yeah, it's a phenomenal year. So
What are you comparing that one up against? What's the other one?
So now I don't know. Maybe this might have helped me, but then again, you chime in because I can't believe I missed Diablo. And then secondly, then I have to look at, like, that was a long time ago. Admittedly, we're talking the 1990s. And then then I'm looking at some recent games. You know, I'm getting into the more recent years, and then I find 2015.
Killer year.
Dude, I had no idea.
This was my number 2.
Some of this is recency bias because, you know, we remember the newer games and stuff like that. 2015, Witcher 3. Okay, I make no qualms that Witcher 3 is my favorite game ever made. Okay, but that's the year that it released. Fallout 4, phenomenal game. Now, I know maybe it's not the best Fallout, but Fallout 4 was still very good. Rocket League.
Yep.
Witcher 3 and Rocket League in 1 year? Like, come on, man. This is like, how do I not pick this year? Bloodborne. Now, admittedly, I don't pretend to be an expert on all these games. I have never played Bloodborne, but I love the Dark Souls series, right? And I have played a lot of Dark Souls, and Bloodborne is very similar to that, and it's got amazing reviews, and I've seen tons of video of it. So I know it's a great game. Rainbow Six Siege.
Oh, I didn't even get that on my list. I didn't even run across that.
Rainbow Six Siege came out in 2015. Now, again, it did not release to the greatest fanfare, and it took them a couple years to get it to where it is. But, I mean, that's a phenomenal game. Rise of the Tomb Raider. I mean, that was they remade
the second
it.
One
you know
of
what I
the
mean?
remake.
It's a great game. Batman Arkham Knight.
Yep.
Another one of the great Batman series. StarCraft 2, Legacy of the Void. That was 2015 was released there. Ark. Now, we love Rust, and Ark is Rust with dinosaurs. We have not played Ark, or at least I haven't played very much of it, but my kid plays a ton of Ark and loves that game. And I know that it's huge with a lot of people. Super Mario Maker.
Yep. My favorite Mario game.
Yeah, Ori and the Blind Forest, which started another series that's a great, great platformer. I mean, 2015 for me, if I look at Witcher 3 and Rocket League, just those two games are two of my favorite games of all time.
Big heavy hitters at the top.
So it's like, but if two of my favorite games in the last, decade are on in that year, then how do I not pick that year?
I got a couple more heavy hitters for you that year too.
Tell me. Yes, tell me.
Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain.
Oh,
fantastic Metal Gear
you know what?
Solid.
I have that written down, dude. I have that written down, and I forgot to read it. So yes, that's a phenomenal game.
Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, previously covered on our podcast.
Was that 2015?
2015.
Dang it, this is getting harder.
Splatoon on the Wii U. Possibly the best game on the Wii U. I loved Splatoon. I liked it more than you, I think.
You did. It was a super cool game. I can appreciate what it was. And honestly, we bought a Wii U. So you're right. It was like one of the best games released on the Wii U. I just wasn't a huge fan of the Wii U. You know what I mean? But Splatoon was a great game.
And I'll throw one more out for you. Vermintide 1.
We had a lot of fun with Vermintide.
I think we played a lot more Vermintide 1 than 2. So that's another great one for 2015. When I made my list, I added up how many games from each year made it on my list, and 2015 had the most number of games. Now, it had a lot of 1s and 2s for me. I mean, there's some on there that I had that you didn't mention. Like, I love The Escapists, just a silly little 8-bit game trying to break out of jail. A couple other games, Broforce, SteamWorld Heist. Those are all games that I love, but there are so many good games from 2015. You had some pretty young kids in 2015. I'm surprised you could fit in that much gaming.
I mean, I find time for it. I don't watch TV. So funny thing for most people is I watch maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours of TV a week, like total. So my downtime is video games.
And I kind of feel like that's kind of around where smaller indie games really started stepping up. So instead of having to go out and buy $60 games, you could buy these $15, $20 games like Steam World Heist or Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, and you could get tons of hours out of, pretty good cheap games. So it was a great year.
It wasn't every game was $60 and you just hope that it was good.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you were like Rocket League. Rocket League was $20. It's the best $20 I've ever spent. I'm going to stew on it for a little while I listen to yours, because I really don't know, man. It's tough for me. So I'm going to keep thinking about it, and then I'll give you my decision.
Sure. All right. So 2015 for me came in as the second highest score on my spreadsheet, but it did not have the overall highest score, like I mentioned before, just because it has a lot of ones and twos. The year for me that came out by far the highest was 2004.
Not on my list. So interesting.
I just went ahead and sent you a screenshot there, Josh. If you want to take a look at it, that's my graph showing how many games I marked as a masterpiece by year.
Whoa.
And most years...
That's not even close.
Most years would have, I would say, 2 to 5, kind of looking at that graph. And there's one year that just spikes, and it's 2004. I had 9 games that year that I considered to be a masterpiece. You're talking almost one a month. All right, I'm going to hit you with a few of these. These are the cream of the crop when you think back over the last 30 years of gaming. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Great game.
Halo 2.
Great game.
Half-Life 2.
Oh, phenomenal game.
Metal Gear Solid 3.
Great game.
World of Warcraft.
Unbelievably epic game.
Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2.
Oh, I love the Old Republic series.
Slightly lesser known, but they were masterpieces to me. Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2, which was an amazingly fun action RPG that you could play with co-op. Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth.
Oh, that game's phenomenal.
So much fun, right in the middle of the RTS, genre, when that was such a big genre at the time. And Battle for Middle-earth 1 and 2 were both fantastic. I mean, those are just a couple... Oh, Fable 1 on Xbox. A couple other games that weren't masterpieces that also came out that year. X-Men Legends. And I feel like from 2000 to 2004, there were so many really good up to 4-player co-op games like X-Men Legends, where you just got to play as the X-Men. You'd play through these levels together. It was very similar to games like Gauntlet, and X-Men Legends was great. I mean, they still make that line of games now. It's just Marvel Ultimate Alliance. And that was the first one of the series. X-Men Legends was fantastic. Also, you had Red Dead Revolver. And I bet some of our younger listeners probably don't even know that this game exists, because there was Red Dead Redemption on the PS3 and then Red Dead Redemption 2 that came out later. There was actually a first game in the series, Red Dead Revolver, which was very different. It was not an open world. You did not play with, John Marston. It was a completely different series, but it was a great game, standalone just by itself. And that also came out in 2004. So that is just a killer's row. I mean, even just the top with Half-Life 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, World of Warcraft. Come on. I mean, these are incredible games at the top.
I'm going to throw out a couple more in 2004, because I actually did look at this year. Thief, so the Deadly Shadows, that was a very well-renowned game. Doom 3 came out.
Mm-hmm.
And then Paper Mario. The 1,000-Year Door. My wife, any game that my wife plays a lot, is always sticks out to me, because she's not a huge gamer, but she loved that game, man. The Paper Mario series is great.
I do love the Paper Marios. I had put down Paper Mario on N64 back in 2001 on my list. The second one, I just didn't play as much, although they're great. The first one was just so new and novel, where you could switch back and forth from 2D to 3D, that I'm kind of surprised we don't see more games like that. It was very clever, playing with perspective and space. It was completely unique. Great series. So yeah, there's one that I didn't even put on my list.
And then you had the birth of 2 more series. You had Far Cry.
Okay.
The initial Far Cry was released in 2004, and then Star Wars Battlefront.
Yeah.
And I mean, Battlefront's yeah, you know, people are kind of, it's a money grab, it's EA, you know, there's that. But I mean, this was the first time that people could play, you know, a good multiplayer first person shooter is Star Wars.
And that's going all the way back, not the newer Star Wars Battlefronts. This is back in the original on Xbox. And my wife, Nikki, played Battlefront a lot, believe it or not. For some reason, that game really stuck out to her. So there's probably something to be said for 2004 because this is a couple years after I graduated high school. So I was going to college, I was working part-time, and my wife and I had very staggered schedules. And so I was actually going to school later in the afternoon and then working at night. And so I had my mornings and afternoons basically wide open. And so I was just knocking out a lot of games. This is before I had any kids. So it was a lot of gaming. I was able to kind of play everything in 2004. And that's probably a big reason for why that stuck out so much to me.
That's a really good year, man. I mean, World of Warcraft alone launching that year could almost win that single-handedly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. And I put in so many hours into World of Warcraft. I remember, because I was also very poor at this time, and the only thing I could ever spend money on was video games. I mean, I would just save up everything and I'd buy the next game and I'd sell whatever games I owned to GameStop to be able to get it. And when I got World of Warcraft, it was amazing because I just had to pay $15 a month and I didn't need to buy any other games. I mean, I remember at one point looking back and just adding up how many months I had spent in World of Warcraft, and it was like $790.
Oh.
And I was like, I can't believe I've spent this much money on a video game, and it's totally worth it. And I played World of Warcraft on day one that it released. So, you know, 04, man, what a heavy year for amazing games. And then out of curiosity, do you want to know what scored the lowest for me?
What year yeah, because I didn't look at like terrible years at all.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're talking about the best, but since I have the numbers here, the 2 years that scored lowest for me were a tie, 2014 and 2019.
What?
So interesting
Dude,
that they were both.
2014? Are you kidding me? That's on my list.
No, not at all.
No. Oh, we gotta argue over this.
2014 was a pretty sad year. I included Mario Kart 8 and The Sims 4, and honestly, those were both borderline. I didn't even really want to include those. And then Infamous Second Son is kind of on my list only because the PS4 came out, and that was like one of the first games, and there was nothing else really to play. So I played a lot of Infamous. And really the only game that year that I love, which I had marked as a masterpiece, is Dragon Age Inquisition.
I was going to say, how does that not rank higher for you?
2014 is a bad year. I only had 4 games on the list. And 2019?
I legit have it highlighted as one of my like top 3 years.
As 2019?
No, 2014.
Oh, 2014. Oh,
Dude,
no, that's a terrible year.
Okay. All right, let me read you why. Okay, because this is funny that we're so different on this. In no particular order, Middle Earth, Shadow of Mordor, which the Middle Earth games
not as good as the first,
are great. Dark Souls 2. You're not a Dark Souls fan, but
no, I played the first one and I played Bloodborne, and I'm not crazy about that series.
Yeah, Dark Souls 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, which was a phenomenal game, Hearthstone. So I know you're not a card game. See, this is just straight up like different genres but like I loved Hearthstone. I played a ton of that. Far Cry 4, which we just did our Far Cry episode, and I told you, and I said in that episode, Far Cry 4 to me is better than Far Cry 5. Destiny. So that's the year that Destiny launched.
Destiny wasn't that great. Destiny 1 in particular.
Elder Scrolls Online. So this is, you finally got a chance to play the Elder Scrolls.
That game was garbage, Josh.
It's terrible.
Elder Scrolls Online is not worth mentioning at all.
It's terrible, but when it came out, it was very popular because it was finally, you were able to play the Elder Scrolls as an MMO.
Yeah, I played it at release and I hated it.
Diablo 3.
Sure.
And then Vanishing of Ethan Carter. That was a great game too.
Yeah, but you can't compare these to the likes of Halo 2, Half-Life 2.
I didn't think
year.
It was the worst year. There was some very good games that year.
And 2019 was honestly pretty poor. I mean, there were a lot. I don't want it to sound like there were no good games, but to me, the only ones that really stuck out were Apex Legends, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which again, I loved Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and that was the spiritual successor, and Super Mario Maker 2. Those were the only 3 in the whole year that really stuck out.
I don't mean to dive into another year, but one year that I think had a lot of good titles, but no real major ones, with the exception of one, was 2016. I'd be curious to see where that ranked on your graph.
2016 is going to rank very high because of Stardew Valley,
And
one of my
Overwatch.
all-time favorite games.
Yeah.
Overwatch, Uncharted 4. There's some
Dark
good
Souls,
games.
This is why. So to give a brief, Overwatch in 2016, Overwatch, Titanfall 2, Dark Souls 3, The Witness, Uncharted 4, XCOM 2, No Man's Sky, which released. It was a terrible release, but it's a great game now. Pokemon Go. So
All right.
you talk about a year. I mean, Pokemon Go changed the world for a little while. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. I love the Deus Ex games. Stardew Valley, The Division. So the initial Division, which I thought was a really cool kind of new style of game. Gears of War 4. Now, I'm not a big mobile game, but I know Clash Royale was super popular. And then Job Simulator. We were getting into the world of VR.
Oh, get out of here. Josh, these are not great games. You're mentioning average games. Job Simulator is an average game.
Oh, I'm not saying these are all great games, but these are all games that are worth playing. You know what I mean? So
sure.
2016 was a year that had a lot of like a pretty good stock of games. I'm not saying it's my best by any means, but it was a good year.
I feel like every year has 7 or 8 games like that. So I didn't even look at those. I was just trying to look at the top of the bunch. I know we have different, personalities and different types of games that we're looking for. That one actually ranked pretty low for me that year.
I think it's pretty crazy that 2015 is in my top 2 and 2015 is in your top 2.
In my top 2, yeah. Even though we had different games listed. I mean, we had some overlap, but we had different games for why we loved it. Yeah, that was a great year for gaming. Yeah, so I feel like we're due. We need some really big games that everyone's playing at the same time. We're due for it.
Cyberpunk comes out this year. That's all we
need. Maybe
that's
it comes
all
out
we
this
need.
year. It might come out this year.
Please let that game be everything that I'm really dreaming it is. All right, I think I've decided. I've been looking at my list here. I've been looking at the years. We kind of touched on a couple other years, and I think that helped me out too. So,
all right, what's the winner? 2015 or 1997?
My official, I think the best year in video games is 1997. There's just too many great games, dude. And I know that may not hit with some of our younger listeners because they're like, "Wait, what?" But
you're young for a 51-year-old, Josh. I'm
not 51.
Don't
How
put,
dare you? How dare you?
Don't put yourself down with your age.
I mean, there's just too many good games.
All right, yeah, it's good. It's a good choice. Just to be nitpicky, The Curse of Monkey Island was not a good Monkey Island game. The first 2 Monkey Islands were amazing, and they are far older. That was one of the goofy, cartoony ones that they made later.
Wait, am I thinking of Escape from Monkey Island?
No, you're probably thinking of The Secret of Monkey Island or Monkey Island 2: LeChuck's Revenge. Those are the good ones.
Oh, dang it.
Yeah. So that was my only nitpick. Whatever that one was called was not as good. Still a good year.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure we've bored our audience to death by listing game after game after game. But thank you everyone for joining us. It was fun, talking a little bit about what years were the best in gaming. And come join us again for our regular show, which is structured, quite a bit differently than this. But on Monday, we will be talking about A Way Out. And also come check us out on social media. You wanna tell them a little bit about where they can find us, Josh?
Yeah, Twitter at Multiplayer Pod. We're on Instagram, Multiplayer Podcast, and I'm gonna post these years and some of the top games from the years. And we want to know what you guys think. If we missed it and you think there's a year that you like, man, you guys are crazy. How about this year? Like, share it with us. That's what we want to hear for sure. If you want to agree with me that 1997 was the best gaming year, by all means, please do that so I can rub it in Paul and Todd's face.
We're gonna need the baby boomers to come out and come vote. If you served in NAM, come check out our Twitter.
Oh man,
come vote for Josh.
Oh
goodness. Well, in any case, I think there is something to be said that both of us picked years when we were in college.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's something to that. So if you're college aged, enjoy those games now, because you will never have as much time to play them in the future.
That's right.
All right. See you guys on Monday.
Cool. Awesome. See you guys.